Welcome back to Let's Talk Race and Mile. I'm your host, Harrison Paul, and today we're going to talk about the Passport Bros. This is a topic that came up on my Twitter, and I just felt like we needed to discuss it. There's a guy called Austin Holoman. I'm not quite getting it, but he's a Passport Bro, and anybody who doesn't know, Passport Bros are people who believe that Westernized women have become maybe too, I guess, not submissive and lacking traditional qualities. So they feel the best thing to do is to go to these places that haven't been so westernized, maybe Peru, which is what I'm going to discuss today, maybe South America or Africa. Just these places that still kind of have, traditionally cultured places. So I'm going to talk about this because one of the main things that people are upset about, and I noticed, is that someone left a very wise comment that I felt was about how he only treated the women who were fairer skinned in these fairer skinned places and brought them to higher star restaurants and treated them a little bit better. And then African girls, he expected them, maybe the darker skinned Africans, but I didn't even see any dark skinned Africans. I more so saw light skinned Africans, but he gave them a little bit less than, a 5-star hotel and whatnot. So there is a little bit of, questionable practices there within the Passport Bro mentality. But I'm going to address something huge regarding it. Of course, I know the Passport Bro mentality isn't only about, I guess, black and white people. It is more so, kind of everybody feels that way about Western women in general. I think African women have adopted a lot of Western ideologies, a lot of Western behavior. I think at heart, African culture, as we know, it's why he's going there, is very traditional. And obviously, a lot of people are torn and upset about, the benefits of tradition. Now, I am a believer in traditional, relationships and roles. But I'm also not a guy who reinforces what the woman should do without reinforcing what the man should do. Now, when I say what the man should do, I don't only mean what he should do physically. I also mean what he should do spiritually and what he should do emotionally. The Bible says, men, love your wives, and wives, respect your husbands. I think the Bible also says, then again, men, no one ever treat your wife how you treat your own body. No one ever hated their own body, and like Christ loved the church. So basically, you got to be ready to lay your life down for your wife, to love her. And when we think about that, I could go on and on and on. It's about the emotional side of just being patient with her emotions, and just loving her, and doing the day-to-day stuff on the ground of what a woman needs to feel love and appreciate it. It's not just throwing a sum of money at her and kind of saying, I did this, I provided, but it's rather giving her a loving relationship that she needs and she desires. But anyway, we're not going to make this a relationship seminar, but we're going to talk more so on the concept of black women becoming lacking femininity. I'm very disappointed when I see brothers come on here and bash their sisters live on Twitter or live on any of these social sites. But of course, not everybody is woke, not everybody is conscious, so they're just kind of saying things without knowing the root cause, saying things without understanding the further damage that it can cause for the community. And it's a very sad thing. But listen, I'm just going to play the tape for us to see today quickly so you can understand where we're getting at here, and then I can get into it. Check this out. This is Austin in a restaurant, and he's come across this young lady, and I think what everyone is loving about this lady on this tape is her openness, I guess. Her openness, her willingness to just I guess, vulnerability in many ways, right? And that's what I'm going to talk about today. But let's watch this so we can see.
This is for the vlog. This is for the live stream. So,
okay. So I have to say something?
No, you don't have to say anything. That's all you got to do is be on camera.
Your name is?
Austin.
Austin? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, you look like my brother. Yes.
Your brother looks black?
It's not black, but you're... but
okay.
you have his eyes.
Really?
Yes, equal.
Okay.
How old are you?
24.
Oh my god,
Two?
I'm older than you.
How old are you?
29.
Okay, you look 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look, how old do you think I was?
Like, I don't know, like mine. He asked me if you want something to drink.
That's that. Basically, this brother, as you can see, everyone is quite happy. But then there's also the guys who are defending black women and kind of understanding that he's making this about, you know what I mean, pointing out the flaws within black women. Because this, for especially for black people, the conversation always really is revolved around the hardened, the kind of, I guess I want to say hardened aura or demeanor of black women. And I wanted to start today by starting with a story because I think that's to be the best way for me to explain what I now understand. And today I'm gonna really get into this episode, so stay tuned because this is really something I don't think you'll hear on any other podcast. Really, I can promise you that. So today I was actually grocery shopping, and I always notice these type of things. And in fact, like I said before, I'm so grateful to have a woman who is really understanding and really trusting because although I'm in a relationship and most women wouldn't like you being too friendly with women, I feel like I have this deep burning desire to show black women my appreciation and to treat them like citizens who deserve, I guess, a pedestal in many ways. I'll explain. I'll tell you what I mean by that. So let me get into the story. So I'm in the store. And when I'm in the store, it's a guy who I understand is a South African guy. Well, he's a white guy who works there. I see him all the time. And he's from Zimbabwe, right? But Zimbabwe isn't like he's an Afrikaans, like a white Zimbabwean, but he lived there for a long while. So in fairness to this guy, we have great interactions because I understand this guy to be, let me say this, he's a little bit more, I guess, responsive to black people because he's lived in a predominantly black country a lot of his life. So it's funny because I always noticed there was something different about him. And then of course, when I later began to chat with him, because I seen him often, obviously going in there often, it's my local grocery store, local Aldi. And then I was like, he told me, he's like, oh yeah, I lived in Zimbabwe. Where are you from? I was like, I lived in Zimbabwe for a long time, he tells me. I'm like, makes a whole lot of sense then. But I'm going to mention a lot of topics here, a lot of points. And one of the points being the idea, of like, I think I said in one of my podcasts before about the racism, there's layers to racism. There's so many layers that I don't think it's actually right for black people to feel as though there's not a fight that still needs to be finalized when it comes to this. Our identity, our self-determination, our respect, and our dignity. There's a lot here that we need to fight so that the layers within society can be completely shed so we can flourish. But what I'm going to say, why I mention that is because he's great, like typical white, nice guy, always polite, never up and down. But then I want to tell you something, how it goes a little bit further. So basically, there was black women who were coming, right? There were two black women, and now there's a self-service checkout, and then there's obviously checkout when those big grocery stores where you kind of go to someone and they serve you and they beep you through all that kind of stuff, right? So I've never seen it before because usually I just carry a basket and I go to the self-service, and I usually see people carrying baskets going to self-service, and usually when I see like mothers, they want to go with their trolley and their house shopping, and they go to like the queue. So as these two young ladies, because I was actually in a different line, these two young ladies, they go and they want to self checkout, and they had like kind of big trolleys a little bit, and he was like, I felt the vibe in his tone was a little bit stern. It wasn't like it wasn't as delicate, right? It was like, oh, ladies. Although he said, ladies, can't go here, thank you. It was kind of like, not here, not now. And I was kind of like, I just felt like, okay. I remember thinking to myself, oh, didn't like that, And I'm very protective over black women. I'm honestly so protective. So I'm always like like a Dr. Umar picture, like watching, like, you know what I mean? So I remember watching. So then I do ask myself, like, Am I being too much, or was that something? Maybe, okay, chill, Harrison, chill. You wouldn't believe it, but I tell myself that too. Like, maybe you need to chill, Harrison, you know what I'm trying to say? So I'm like, all right, cool, And they turned around, and I remember they kind of felt a little bit like, not being rude, but they just wanted to kind of get their things and then check out and go, right? So they turned around and that, and the two girls, they had trolleys, whatever. And then two other blondies came, young ladies, things, I will say society will assume them or presume them as attractive young women. And they came about this probably 2 minutes after, because I got myself in a little bit of a sticky situation because I bought something full price when it had actually been reduced. So I was like, oh crap, I need to go and get it reduced, whatever. So I was able to watch this while, my till was kind of getting the refund and doing all that stuff. So in about like 2 minutes, probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes, those two blondies come, those young girls, and the trolley is literally the same size, the same size as those, that guy, those two girls. And he's like, ladies, card of, what he usually will ask is a card or cash. So as you know, if it's a card, you go to that, that checkout on that side, that wall. If it's cash, you go to the self, the self checkout, right? So he says to them, ladies, this way. And I'm just looking at him like, you just told them black sisters 2 seconds ago that like you couldn't bring Charlie's here, and now you know what I'm trying to say? Because he kind of works that self checkout place. So, of course he feels he wants to keep, brighten up his day in that kind of a way, that kind of way. And I hate to expose him, but I remember one day, I never saw him like this because he's kind of an older guy, maybe in his 40s, whatever, but it's typical man stuff. One day, a woman checked out, white woman who he thought was pretty, and he kind of was saying to someone else, did you see that one when she had gone out? And I remember just thinking, typical guys, but don't think anything of it. So then I understood then from that day that, he likes to get the benefit out of his job when he sees a little pretty one, maybe have a little chitty chat, type of stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So I now understand, like, it was kind of like, okay, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, so he kind of shooed those two black women away. And, these very two, and they were about the same age women. That's the thing, about the very, very same age. You know what I mean? Like, all the women looked about my age. All four of them. And, in that moment, I was so frustrated and I was stuck down because, like I told you, he's usually nice to me, but I think this is one of the things I think as a black community, I'll just put it as a footnote. I want to take that upon myself. I want to have a problem between him and I now. I want to change my dynamic with him. Why? Because I think if we had that as a community, if we had that togetherness, because we are in a faraway land, we are, quote unquote, the minority here, and we got to stick together. Of course, he won't know why, so I'll ask myself, and I'm asking God how I'm going to deal with this. But I don't like the theory where black people was like, well, they did that to that black person, didn't do it to me, you know what I mean? And that's why they always catch us out. That's why they can, mess people around in the system. That's why they can mess people around with a position in a job, in the workplace, everything, because it's like, we don't band together and say, hey, I didn't like how you did that. But it wasn't a situation I could necessarily step in and say, because obviously it wasn't like a kerfuffle or anything. The women were gone. They were being, dealt with at a different tail. But I just saw, the disparity of how he treated the four different women, or should I say the two groups of women, the two pairs of women. And this is what I want to talk about when I discuss the Passport Bros. One of the main things you need to understand, my brothers, is as I study black consciousness, as I study the issue with the black man, as I study what he went through, the black woman, all that kind of stuff, one of the main things that I'm understanding is, obviously, I understood before I even found my lady that I would want to marry a black woman. I understood that. I was quite hurt from my last relationship, so I said, if I'm to marry, it'll be a black woman. But I was a little bit hurt by women and a little bit apprehensive when it came to my next relationship or whatever I've ever have, when I was kind of in my phase of like, I'm just going to get the bag and just worry about, you know what I'm saying? Like, And I was really actually kind of praying to be celibate. That was something I was praying for. Like, I just wanted to be one of them, like, eunuchs who are just like super focused on what he does, and everyone's gonna question if he even has a relationship because he's just so focused. That's how hurt I was in a relationship. But I did know I wanted to move on to a black woman if that was to happen. And one of the things I understood when I was kind of like testing the waters, and I don't like to say testing as if I'm test driving, but sometimes I would move to some and I would lightly approach some and whatever. Not trying to put myself in anything too deep too quickly, but just moving. And I noticed that there was this bite. There was this bite from a black woman, and it was a bite that I was familiar with because every time when I was growing up, either way, your interaction you'd have with black women were always like very kind of sometimes feisty and so I recognized that. I can't say I was like, what's that about? I recognized it. But I had the compassion for black people and for my race to understand, okay, why is there a bite to this interaction? And then, of course, why she's being held here right now is because there's such an openness, right? There's an openness. And that I told that story to you guys today because I want you to understand. And there's a great, quote that's been said to me by someone I had on the show about, the black woman is the only flower in society that's expected to bloom without being poured into. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that is the saying. And I realized, guys, I realized that black women have actually suffered for these small, and we can actually start with these small things. We can start with, in a grocery store, a white lady would get treated nicer because her hair is flowy and whatever. And then a dark skinned sisters. So whilst you think, a racist moment didn't take place there, for a white woman has that openness because life has treated her like that. And I even used this example before, I think, in a podcast, and I was like, it's the simple things like, from a young age, a girl begins to know, or I think like, you know what I'm saying? Because that shopkeeper treats me nicely, or those men look at me when I walk down the street, and life begins to pour into you. And then you begin to have a lighthearted approach to life. Of course, you have some who are maybe different. I'm not saying there's zero exceptions, but these small, intricate details of how the perception of a black woman and the perception of a white woman and the beauty standards and Eurocentric beauty standards, this has caused the black woman to build a wall. And now when I'm educated on this, my heart pours out to my black women. And I'm persistent. And even as I'm fighting for black women and whatever, I can take hits from the very people I'm fighting for. But I just close my mouth, I just swallow it down, and I understand that I'm working with a community that has brokenness within it. And I keep going. And I said this before, if you think I do what I do because I love black people and black people love me, and I love black people because black people love me, you're wrong. If you think that I do this because it's handy dandy, I'm taking hits and punches and hits and punches and licks and licks and licks. And I just keep going because I love the community. I don't know how to tell you something. I love the community enough to see the humanity in the community. I want to read this, message I got from someone, a very, very smart young lady who was responding to something else that I posted on my story on Instagram. And I just want to show you what she said because it's amazing. She said, this was something I've observed too. Actually, I'm going to have to read the original message because it would only make sense if I read the original message. So let me kind of get to the original message and then I can show you guys. So I think one of my great friends, her name is Lydia. She's actually an activist in Ireland. She does like a lot of activist work and also she's a part of the deaf community as well. So really probably one of the most inspiring people I know because she's just, exudes so much strength. So shout out to Lydia. But we were discussing about, interracial relationships and whatnot, and how, some of the activists back in the day, actually were with white women or stuff like that. And I said, what do you think? Share your thoughts with me. And this is what she said. I'm just seeing this now. Sorry. I find it quite intriguing how when I look at at the past and present anti-racism activists. Many of those highlighted in the past are black men who are married to black women but engage in infidelity with white women. In contrast, in the present, I noticed that around 90% of black female activists are either married to white men or identify as lesbians but are single. This phenomenon reflects a deeper divide within the community and the lingering effects of slavery and colonization on how we perceive each other. I think that's a big one, guys. Please let me read that again. That's big. Come on, Lydia. Listen, this phenomenon reflects a deeper divide within the community and the lingering effects of slavery, colonization, and how we perceive each other. Guys, this is so important. This is why I have patience. This is why I persist. This is why, because I know the root cause of it is trauma. The root cause of it is brokenness. You know, that black woman is, you have to understand that even life, a colonized mind, a colonized society, Eurocentric beauty standards, you have to have that empathy. But let's continue. This is wonderful. While there is love within our community, there also exists a barrier preventing us from truly holding a space for each other and communicating with our guards down. This is what I'm talking about. When the black woman goes through life and all this thing, the guard gets built up. And in many ways, when I actually, before I got with my wife, wife to be, I always call her my wife, but my wife to be, it was a matter of like, I really, I began to understand, like I explained to you, that there was a wall up. And in many ways, I appreciated the wall because I appreciated that is like a soldier. That's a soldier who's gone through life and taken licks out of life, and she's standing strong. Life hasn't always treated her like it's treated a Karen. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I made this analogy before. Karen behaves like a Karen because life has always told her she has a right to demand. That is why Karen can be black, because life has always told her you have a right to get up and break down in tears and everything's going to stop. You have that right. In many ways, like I told you, the shopkeeper being nice to her and noticing that life, when she walks through life, you know, the red carpet a lot of times is just put out for her. And you guys are going to think, oh, I had to struggle. No. But I'm talking about the disparity between a black woman and a white woman. I'm talking about the disparity between the wavy hair and the kinky hair, and the flowy hair and the kinky hair. I'm talking about why black women even wear wigs and all that stuff, because it's just, you can see the psychological concept there of trying to shift over into what life has told us, society has told us is femininity. So, I actually fell in love with saying, my strong, sis, I'm gonna push for you. I'm gonna whatever for you. Do you know what I'm saying? And when I even started to, move to my lady, I also experienced that kind of tough, tougher than I'd ever experienced with any white woman. It was just, like wall after wall after wall. And good thing I had my mother at the time as an advisor, and she was like, that's a good woman. A good woman is not, that she's got her wall up, so you gotta show you're persistent and go and break that down. But anyway, let me keep going. This is wonderful. Where was I? While there is love within our community, there's also exists a barrier preventing us from truly holding space for each other and communicating with our guards down. It sometimes feels like black men are not so bothered by the struggles we face. It sometimes feels that black men, oh, come on, let me read that again. It sometimes feels like black men are not so bothered by the struggles we face as a community. And black women may not have fully unpacked the trauma and the baggage we carry. Why I love that, right? And one thing I wanted to correct her, but I didn't, was I could have said, I do think black women have to also come to a place where they understand, men as well took some hits, and men also are colonized, and they felt that being more colonized would get them further up the ladder, and you also have to have empathy for them in many ways. And the next person who I spoke to actually, and I'll read that after, said that and alluded to that a little bit, which I thought was amazing. But how she said it there, but the point I took from it was, and I think men should look at this, it's our responsibility. You talk about women, anybody who's about, traditional values, red pill boys, what I mean, women be women and men be men and all that kind of stuff. Well, then provide that refuge. Don't be saying, oh no, provide, understand that. No, okay. I like how she kind of focused on like, we haven't unpacked and you haven't cared about us. There wasn't a sense of like, oh, we didn't care about you, but there's more of a sense of like, care about us. And I want our women to feel like, I want our women to feel like it's our responsibility to provide for you, not just physically, emotionally. You know what I mean? In refuge, in strength, and all those kind of things. Like, you just kick back, you just sit back, and I'm gonna handle it. That kind of way. And that's why I like that. I was torn between that, Black women may not have fully unpacked the trauma, right? Listen, including, right, the silent rage towards our men for not being our protectors, especially in Western world. Come on, guys. But no one is taking the time to ask why and point out the real culprit. The imperialist. Reading books like The Will to Change, Salvation, and Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks had shed light on these issues for me, affirming what I already suspected. What we seek is within each other, but what hinders us from reaching it is our reluctance to look in the mirror and acknowledge how we individually contribute to the problems we face as a community, and taking accountability to change ourselves rather than pointing fingers outwardly. Before we can address the pain caused by others, we must confront how we ourselves perpetuated and work towards changing ourselves. Only then can we come together at the table and forge a better future for both those of us on the motherland and those in the diaspora. What a message. Amazing message. As you can hear, guys, it's self-explanatory. I'm not even going to try and, add to what she did. But then I put it on my Instagram story, and someone else, another wise Black lady, responded. Check this out. This was something I've observed too. Even our best activists aren't immune from how far this deep goes. For a while, I was in denial of the chasm between Black men and women. I was advised to stop waiting on Black men and be open to other races. While I believe Black people should accept love where they find it, interracial relationships aren't the solution to our issues. It's also important to challenge the notion that romantic love is the highest form of love. Love, even in the Bible, friendship and familial love were more important. When I began to thrive as a single woman, my interactions with men became better. I see their full humanity. Now I'm not looking for their love to rescue me. There is much brokenness in our community. It may take a few generations to resolve if we are committed. I really appreciated that part where she said, see their humanity. And I think what is amazing is, my mom always mentioned this from a woman's perspective, like, you have to understand that the man has to deal with, because the man, obviously a Black man, has to feel a superior and has to feel, like his masculinity and whatever. It's a different ball game for a man to go out in the world and then he cannot exercise his dominance. He cannot exercise his masculinity to his full extent. So that's why you have brothers who want to feel, and this is my opinion, that, dominating the white man's woman can add to that. I'm going to speak for myself. Whoever wants to be honest can be honest with here. When I assessed myself after the fact, not when I was in it, I realized, and I broke, debunked my way of thinking that yes, getting the blonde, getting the white man's woman brought me that sense of maybe belonging, brought me that sense of conquering, that I was conquering in their realm. And it realized, and something actually I realized as I was making the transition, that, hey, it was something new for me to feel like I'm gonna conquer in my, because every man wants to feel like they're conquering when they get a beautiful woman, right? But I'm gonna conquer in a realm that the white man may not even understand. The society, the majority, of the white society around me may not even understand this beauty. But guess what? I'm going to uplift that beauty, and I'm going to set that on the top of my pyramid. And I believe that's some real alpha male way of thinking. But it was actually a shift that took place. And I say this because I think that it's healthy for people to learn. The honesty is also going to make people feel which way, whatever way, but I think the honesty is real and needs to be there for people to learn from it. So I say all this to say, I think these two women have said it brilliantly. We have to understand what our women have gone through. And if you're going to be a passport bro and say, it's not working here, it's not whatever, you cannot be ignorant. There's a whole history there of brokenness. There's a whole history. It is our generation to fix it. Just like generations of old of men went to war and they went and they fought and everything. It's our job to go to psychological war. You know, our women and children are dying in this war, are falling to the wayside, and many have died in the past. And we are now waking up with the power of the internet, with the power of information from the internet, and we can self-search and actually fix and rehabilitate our communities psychologically. We can make our women feel like their beauty is at the top of the pyramid. I often feel like the uplifting of Black women seems to be something that is like, I guess, I want to be honest, sometimes a little bit forced in order to counteract, which is, I guess, positive, counteract all the negative narratives about Black women. But I want it to feel real. I wanted the confidence to be so real, it's almost silent. You know, I wanted to feel that real and that, you know what I mean? That, I guess, sure or affirmed. And that's going to be our job. You know, that's going to be our job. So to sign off here, I'm going to play one little clip from Dr. Umar that he did with... I forget his name, Mariah Carey's Nick Cannon. And I want you guys to watch it because this is the type of thinking I really love. So just to sign off today, I'm going to play this Dr. Umar clip, and it's just really, really an amazing way of thinking. He kind of went hard on them a little bit, but check this out.
When Princess Onyx grows up with her siblings,
Right.
you're going to have a conversation along
Yes.
with their mothers
Yes.
about colorism.
100%.
As someone who grew up in a home with a dark sister who was
Right.
darker than me, beautiful, but my older sister was darker.
Right.
I saw how she suffered some of the pangs of colorism within my extended family.
100%.
So when Onyx gets to the age where she begins to recognize race, and Brother Nick Cannon has to have that conversation with her mother and the mothers of your other children and your children, your family.
Right.
You're going to have this conversation. And when you start explaining to Onyx that your blackness is in no way a sin or a curse, it's a blessing
It's a
and
blessing.
a power. Right?
Absolutely.
When she reflects back to you,
Her name is Onyx for a reason.
absolutely.
Right.
It's black power, actually.
Yeah.
But when she reflects back to you as her father and say, well, Dad, if this color is all that great, how did you end up to reproduce so many children with women who are not this color?
This guy is so harsh. This guy is so harsh. But listen, these are the realities of it, guys. These are the realities of it. These things that we want to overlook, we have to know these things affected our women, our society. And I just want to reaffirm that story that happened today. It's the small details that teach you about life. You know, who you are in society. Karen didn't get told one day you can be a Karen one day. No, it's the building of small things, how her workmates treat her, how, you know, the guy at the checkout treats her, you know, at the airport, life, just moving through. And that's why Black women have found themselves saying, okay, I gotta put this wall up. I gotta put this so-called non-feminine, whatever you guys want to call it, masculine thing on. I've got to put that wall, that strength up. And if you love your Black woman, you will have this thing where it's like, I'm going to love that wall down. I'm going to love that wall down. Now, I will get into another episode. There is unfortunate things where, you know, a lot of brothers do get hurt in terms of infidelity and all sorts of things. And hopefully I get another episode to discuss that, because that's another kind of worms. And I don't know how actually I'm going to attack a topic when you really get really hard done by a woman. But I'll just say it short and say, don't put it on all Black women. Put it on that Black woman. And what my mom would always say, because I would say, I'm done with women. You know, I'm finished with that. And she always say to me, women are like this. She goes, Hassan, you only need one. You know, you'll only need one. So the one that's great is this one. If there's one that's great out there, she's out there for you, you know. So if there's one Black woman that's great out there, she's out there, you know. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got where I was coming from. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe.
And I'm on a mission for you.